Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres. If this is the first time you tune in, you'll want to know that we're the top consumer goods and retail podcast in Europe. It's not only me saying it, it's our 24,000 LinkedIn followers, for example, that say it, and the thousands of people that download our show every week. So check out our website if you like. It's www.fmcgguys.com to see what other consumer goods leaders we've spoken with. This year, one of the topics we've decided to focus on very much is marketing, because we think it's a very exciting time for this function. And we've hosted many marketing, brand heads, CMOs, you name it. And one of the key topics has been that certain tension in inverted commas between brand building and performance marketing. And while we've covered branding at length, I'm keen today to be hosting Laura Mehren, who's the head of performance marketing and user experience at German fashion powerhouse S.Oliver, to see how this side of marketing works and what they have to say on the broader marketing and even company strategy. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm great.
Excellent. You're tuning in from somewhere in Germany, I think, no?
Correct, from Frankfurt.
Very good, very good. So, Laura, thanks for joining. And it would be good to understand, before your current role at S.Oliver, what's your story? What's your background?
Sure. So basically, as you already said, I'm now working for the S.Oliver Group as head of performance marketing and UX. But I started over 9 years ago. I worked across various industries, and I quite early in my career identified my passion for performance marketing. So I started during university to work full-time, started in B2B actually, so quite a different industry, worked for a headhunting company and was a marketing manager. So from there on, I led lead campaigns. I also created CRM automation. So I was working really operatively, but also actually was founding a podcast with the former CEO of the company. So yeah, that was quite interesting.
How was that podcasting career? How did you find it?
I really enjoyed it, but since I was more in the background rather than stepping in front of the camera and the microphone, I enjoyed it. So it was more promoting it, creating the interviewer list and stuff like that. And also, of course, promoting it on several channels, creating the numbers, stuff like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, but of course, we also saw it as marketing channel as well. So same as you do, probably.
Yeah, that's how it started. Now it's a bit of a different thing, but yeah, indeed. So, and you worked in a few different industries before you went into fashion, no?
Correct. Yes, I did. I was mostly in B2B in the beginning. But my CV honestly has not a clear line, since I got a few jobs from headhunters, and I always was passionate rather about the product, but about the sector I was working in, and performance marketing is relevant in basically every sector. So that's why I had several chances. And in B2B, of course, you have huge differences to B2C, like the sales cycle or the company setup, and of course the product. So yeah, I had 3 positions in different B2B industries, and then coming to B2C and started in fashion for a subsidiary from Signa, which was called Dress for Less. So it was an outlet sector and only online only. And from that on, I switched to S.Oliver about a year ago and worked my way up from team lead to head of.
And what attracted you about S.Oliver? And actually, it would be good to know in your own words, since maybe part of the audience is not familiar with S.Oliver. I'm sure that the audience in Germany, Central Europe will be, but maybe if not, they won't. What can you tell us a bit? What attracted you in about the company?
Sure. So generally, at the history, I mean, S.Oliver has been part of the industry for years, for decades. And it's still led by the owners. So this is really huge. And we have over 4,600 employees and different brands within the company. So when I'm not only responsible for S.Oliver as such, but also for Komma and Liebeskind. So we have a different variety of brands as well as of target groups. Since Liebeskind produces mainly bags for women, we have Komma for more the business side and S.Oliver for the casual and broad variety of products. So it's a huge brand with a huge history, and I really enjoyed also the recruitment process. I think it's really important to have a straightforward process. I immediately connected with my manager and with my team, which I also knew right from the start of the process. And this is, for me, in a leading position, one of the essentials to start a new job.
It's great advice for anyone who's listening that's in a position of hiring people for their team to keep that in mind, that it's important that the candidate experience is paramount, because most people, if they're going to leave a place where they're happy or they're going to join your company, it's because they see like a company that they would like to work with, right? So you can't be amazing in your day-to-day and then have a crap recruitment process, definitely. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a good idea.
No, I mean, it's essential from the time of sending your CV versus getting the first reaction to getting to know the important stakeholders or even the team if you're in a leading position. Because at the end, if you don't know where you start and with whom, you don't know what to expect, and therefore you don't know the company, because at the end, the people who are working there are the heart of the company.
Yeah. And S.Oliver, I think it's very strong in Germany and mostly like Central Europe. No, I think that's the territories where you're stronger.
We operate in different countries, up to 10 countries, depending on the brand. But the main business is definitely in Germany. But we also have stores in Croatia, for example. So we're working on expanding still.
Cool. And your business model, is it mainly vertical? Like, is it your own retail, or you also do wholesale and franchise?
So we actually do wholesale as well as marketplaces. We have our own shops, we have retail, and we also do franchise. Yeah.
Very cool. So you're responsible for performance marketing and UX as well, but in the performance marketing side, how would you define performance marketing?
I think that's a good question, because that maybe has a journey behind itself. So for me, it's the focus on having a data-driven approach on decision making and marketing. So it's in comparison to brand management or brand marketing, where you have an out-of-home campaign, for example, and you see results of brand lift or whatever within months. In performance marketing, you see results within days, and you can quantify every action, and you pay actually for the result. So this is the huge difference. And you have way more insights for your target group, for what works the best, for the user journey itself, for the time to conversion. You have way more insights than in every other marketing channel, I would say.
And can you give us like an example, for example, of what from a consumer perspective or user perspective it would look like to come across a performance marketing campaign?
So basically, in performance marketing, we are mostly focused on the lower funnel, so to say, which means the user is nearly to convert. So as a user, you see, for example, an advertisement with a specific product on it. And if you click on the product, you get directly led to a product detail page and are able to put it in your cart. So it's really product focused.
Great. So what are the main channels that you're working on in performance marketing?
So we have a few, I would say. So basically, it's all about search in Google universe and Bing universe. And that's divided into text ads as well as shopping ads. So you see either the product or a category. Also social, I think, depending on the target group. For us, Meta is still a big player, followed by TikTok. Also affiliates. So we have a huge cashback vertical, for example, with Payback. Payback is, I think, mostly also a German thing. Display ads are still a thing. But also SEO is considered for us as performance marketing. So the variance is big.
It's interesting that you mentioned Bing, right? Because I think that not many people use it in their day-to-day, but I think that the results, I don't know if it's ChatGPT or something like that, depend a lot on Bing, I think.
100%. So it does not have the volume as Google, specifically when it comes to shopping ads or text ads, but it's easy to adapt.
Mm.
And when it comes to AI, I think it may even be more effective in the future. So I think with ChatGPT and whatever AI people are going to use, Bing will become more relevant.
Yeah, I mean, since you're mentioning it, that's like a topic that we're starting to cover. More than cover, it's actually coming up in our conversations on the podcast, like the influence of AI in product search. Does that have an influence on performance marketing per se?
I think in the future, yes. For now, it's not really measurable yet.
Got it.
So I've heard from the market, from different people in my network, that some of the companies tend to have 30% of their search results stolen by AI. So I think there will be in future, but I think when it comes to commerce, it will take a few months till this becomes relevant or even in competition to general search.
Got it. And what's the so you mentioned Google and Meta, I'm sure huge channels for you guys. What's the current situation in advertising there? Because I hear a lot of times people saying, "Oh yeah, we did great because we were on Instagram very early on before everybody was on it," like that kind of thing. Is it what's happened there? Has it become too crowded? Is it expensive or?
It is expensive actually. So if you consider the past years, we see at least a media increase. So usually in Meta, it's like pay per click, an increase of 30% in CPCs. So this is huge. And if you consider also the competition that really changes within the past year. So now not only wholesale, of course, and our marketplace partners, which play an important role, compete with us as a brand because we're selling our products in Amazon, Zalando, and co. But also not the usual competitors for our usual target group like Shein and Temu and stuff. They have huge media budgets, which affects our ad impression share, our click prices. And we partly see specifically in this year, like an increase up to 60%.
Wow. So how do you personally approach performance marketing, having like some constraints that you didn't have before?
Honestly, I think it lives with competition. So at the end, we need it. It's relevant. We have a huge revenue stream coming from performance marketing. And at the end, if it's not Temu, it's another competitor. So we have to find a way to either have the better product, the better price, or the better brand. So we need to find a good marketing mix as well as efficient channels to further push that. And you cannot change the competitor market. You just have to align or identify the right target group, because at the end, like Shein is not hypothetically not approaching the same target group as S.Oliver or attracted by it, but still sharing the same market. So yeah, we have to wait how that develops. But now, since the taxes change from US to China, of course, Temu is not only is less approaching US. So we'll see how that affects the European market.
Mm-hmm. And here on the podcast, we've talked a lot about a new media. It's not a new media channel, but it's a media channel that's had a lot of attention to it, which is retail media.
Yeah.
Which basically means ads on retailer sites. How we talk a lot about it in FMCG, but sometimes we talk about like non-endemics, which is, advertisers on supermarkets that don't sell on supermarkets. But anyway, you're in fashion, which is a bit of a different space. How are you seeing that channel?
Honestly, I think it has great potential, not only for our own shops, but also for the brand as such. Since we are also like um, working in marketplace sector, of course, Zalando, Amazon and Co., they represent a big part of retail media. But of course, you can see it from both perspectives. So one, you can buy basically placements by other retailers, but you can also create like a space in your own shop for other brands. So it has two sides of it, and I think great potential also to collect first party data, and also specifically where users already committed to buy. So this is also in the long run a lower funnel channel where you directly create revenue.
Yeah. And I have a question. Like you mentioned about like you have to pay obviously in performance marketing and so on. Is it all about paying, or are there any other levers that you can pull when you're like the head of performance marketing to make the dollar go further and basically to your ads to be more successful? I don't know, like I'm thinking creative, etc.
Creative is a huge point, because I think like the new targeting is creative. It's going broad, but being specific through creatives. So usually 10 years ago, you targeted by age, by country, by interest. This is not happening anymore. You target by creative, and you try to attract your users by the right creatives, and you need a variety of it. So of course, there are many ways of optimizing your campaigns besides budget. So one is copy, the other is creative, then it's channel mix. It's the mix of upper funnel campaigns mixed with conversion campaigns. So there's a lot of it. And I think you need to understand the user journey and the touch points to identify the right channels and pull the right triggers.
And do you think that you can build, because you know that I mentioned before, there's this tension between brand building and performance marketing. And there's some criticism of like some marketers that say that there's been too much focus on performance marketing, not enough on brand building. What is your point of view? Do you think that you can build a brand exclusively on performance marketing?
I don't think so, no. I think when it comes to the classic perspective on performance marketing, which is really focused on getting the highest return of ad spend, no, you cannot build a brand with that. You need brand budget and you need brand campaigns which are focused on creating reach, because that's the first step to enable the effectiveness of performance marketing. So it needs to be combined, and it needs to be not treated as a silo, but rather working together.
So how do you work together? I guess that the other departments that you would work more the most would be marketing and I guess e-commerce as well.
So we're actually in e-commerce. So marketing is part of e-commerce, and we work closely with management.
Marketing or performance marketing is part of
e-commerce? Marketing is part of e-commerce, and marketing is part of marketing.
Yeah.
Because since we have operating like also offline in marketplaces and wholesale and online shops, of course, it's not only marketing for the own shops, but also for retail. That's why we separated that.
So for obvious reasons, I won't ask you if you think that performance marketing should sit in one or the other. But I will ask you, what does your interaction with e-commerce run? So like, is e-commerce, and I know you're part of e-commerce, but I think you know what I mean with your peers. I guess they're running the website. They're running also the business with third parties, with marketplaces.
Yeah.
What does the typical conversation look like with them, with your colleagues?
So mostly, of course, we discuss numbers. At the end, we all have
long coffee or coffee latte.
Mostly it's an espresso, but to make it quick, no. But jokes aside, so of course we have several rounds of discussions every day, basically discussing campaigns. What are we actually talking about within the shop, outside the shop? We want to align the same message. Therefore, we have to stay in touch. We talk a lot about products, like how does a specific product category perform in their own shops differently to marketplaces, to see differences, to see common ground. So basically, of course, it's more when it comes to content like product, creative, campaign, but also technical perspective. So we stay closely in touch with our IT to make sure we have releases in mind. So when changes on website are happening, we have a huge QA process behind it to make sure everything's running smoothly, because of course it affects our ads, it affects the algorithm, and we need to make sure to have a clear user experience on site. So the main stakeholders are campaign management, is strategy when it comes to huge projects, is IT when it comes to development of the shop, as well as marketplaces and wholesale, to see how is the market doing, how are the competitors doing, and how do we basically have common ground when it comes to selling our products. Because to make sure, of course, we have 12 collections per year, so one each month. We need to sell our products in the most effective way.
And you need obviously then to create like a certain ad to be able to, like that campaign, that the people on the website, their KPI is that they sell the product. You have to make the people that are on the internet on the other side go to click that ad and go and buy a product, no?
Correct. I mean, you need to see basically the same thing. So there has to be a red line between it, because otherwise the abandonment rate will increase. Because if you promote a campaign on site that's not highlighted in the ad, probably the CTR will decrease in the first place. But if it's the other way around and you see a campaign within the ad but not on site, you increase the abandonment rate on site. So it has to be aligned all the time.
As a performance marketer that works on a multi-channel business, are you normally looking to drive sales on your own website, or it could also be on a partner website?
Usually on our own. I mean, we will have like a test with TikTok Shop. So TikTok Shop is basically a marketplace construct. So the sale will be within the TikTok cosmos, but generally we're working on pushing sales on site.
Interesting. Yeah. That's why lots of times it's called DTC marketing as well.
Yeah.
What do your conversations with marketing, with brand marketing, the ones that are looking at like the bigger strategy and the guardians of the brand, what's your conversation look like with them?
So we have regular meetings where we align regarding the campaign planning and the whole year. So we will discuss the biggest topics, the highlights, the commercial moments, to make sure that we are talking the same language in every channel, on-site, off-site, in retail. So we want to align as brand, and this is what we usually discuss. And of course, what we need in terms of creatives to make sure that the campaigns work.
Is there any like policies that you have or set guidelines in general for performance marketing from brand management? Like, is it typical that they would give you like some certain guardrails on what are the limits of the brand, what associations you can make, and so on?
Yeah, of course, we have a CI, which is...
What does that mean?
A CI, like a corporate identity, to make sure that we have the same words, the same values of the brand communicated in all the ads. Also the same style, that you recognize the brand when it comes to color, when it comes to font. So this is of course given, and we have like a frame where we can make tests what works best for performance campaigns.
Makes sense. I asked you before, do you think that you can build a brand with performance marketing? You said no. Do you think that you can build a brand without performance marketing? Or can you sell a brand without performance marketing?
I don't think so. Maybe in the short term, but also maybe for smaller brands. But for a commercial brand that has a huge structure behind it, you also need performance marketing. So you can create a brand without performance marketing, but you can not sell it in a bigger size.
And do you think, looking at your colleagues at brand management, like mainstream marketing, what do you think they can learn from performance marketing?
I think in how we work together, we can learn from each other regarding target group, for example. So we have one target group in mind that we want to, of course, appeal. But on the other hand, if we manage to have a broad audience, we somehow identify another pattern of our target group. So this is how we can learn from each other, but also when it comes to brand marketing, how to quantify results, how to define KPIs and analyze campaigns in short as well as long term.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine, that maybe from a performance marketer's point of view, brand marketing sometimes lacks a bit of like measurement, no, of like what's the return of certain things. I guess that could be something to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, it's our job to convert and have a biggest return on ad spend. But of course, as brand management, you can also define KPIs before that. And my personal goal is, or ours in the company, to drive a bigger efficiency in combining brand management with, or brand marketing with performance marketing. So the hypothesis is, if you combine brand ads like with a bigger reach or impression, that you get to know the user more quickly. And then in performance marketing, the user's seen but the brand before, knows the value behind it, knows the portfolio behind it, and converts easier.
And in the time that you've been in the company, is there like any campaign or any result that you've achieved that you're especially proud of?
Many campaigns actually. So, but it's more than campaigns. So when it comes, of course, our most important quarter is Q4, when all about is Black Friday and sale. But our approach was to start way earlier and to have an increase by end of September, to start with our biggest collection, which is usually outdoor. So more when it comes to jackets and pants and stuff like that. So of course, with the jacket, we have a higher AOV than in the summer with a dress. So this is our most important quarter. And then we start early to increase the tension on the market with brand campaigns as well as performance campaigns. And as soon the Singles Day as well as Black Friday approaches, we have a high level of visibility, that it doesn't affect us that much when CPC is increasing, because other brands are maybe investing way later to scale up, not in the longer time before Black Friday.
And is there any type of advice? Because clearly it seems like you're working well with your colleagues in e-commerce and marketing. Is there like anything specific you think you personally do as a head of performance marketing that you think facilitates, eases that communication and that relationship?
I think it's creating transparency about the goals, about the topics, about the challenges, because I think sometimes in different companies where brand management and performance marketing are really separately working, they don't know what each other's challenge is. And for me, it's the key to be really aligned, to communicate, hey, this is what we need, this is what we want to achieve, because at the end, we're working all for the same goal. So I think it's all about transparency, and take a look at the other's to-do list to make sure we have enough or sufficient alignment.
And another part of your role, I think we haven't really talked about it, but I think it's fascinating as well, as the whole UX, user experience side. What does that mean exactly in your position?
So basically, I think also because the combination is not that common on the market with performance marketing and UX, but it really makes sense, because in performance marketing, you create revenue and traffic, of course, which is essential in order to create revenue. But in UX, you make sure the user converts quickly or even more efficient. So it needs to work together. So the job of UX is basically to make sure that the user has a straightforward experience in the shop in order to convert or to buy, and of course to buy again, because our aim is to have as many returning customers as possible.
And that's in the web shop, I imagine.
In the web shop, correct.
What do you think web shop websites should look like today to be like, top notch?
Top notch. I think that always depends on the target group, because you need to adapt to the to the usage your target group usually has. So what kind of other shops is our target group visiting to make sure we have a similar experience? What kind of expectations? Payment methods is essential. Delivery methods is essential. So you need a clear navigation. You need the guide to guide the user basically. So have the right CTAs. Make sure to guide it to the checkout basically. So in order to achieve that, you need sufficient product information. So we noticed like if we add a video on our product detail page and not only a picture, the user gets more impression of how the product looks on a person that walks, for example, across the street or something like that. You need social proof, like people that rate your product. This is essential. It's common on Amazon. So if we assume most of our e-commerce shoppers use Amazon, of course, we want to somehow recreate the experience, but with our brand values in the background. So we need to represent our brand. We need to create value. We need the information for product, from brand, from the service basically we provide when it comes to delivery, when it comes to payment. And of course, we need the product variety. So for us, is the goal, of course, to increase the number of products we sell per person, and that in a returning order. So it's all about product message and performance of the shop. Of course, website speed is a thing. A clear checkout, so not that many steps. You can easily auto correct or enter your address.
Or your credit card as well. It's such a blocker when it doesn't memorize your credit card because the interface is not the right one.
Because if you don't do it, another shop already does it. So yeah.
Interesting. And as somebody that probably shops online in your personal life and other places, what other things that you still see that you're like, goodness, how can they still be doing that on a day-to-day basis?
Honestly, I think shops that are not mobile first. So if you switch from different devices, because I don't know, during the day you shop on the desktop, and then in the evening on the couch you shop on mobile, and you have a different experience, I think this is really a knockout criteria.
Do you think that shops should be, like, when they're mobile first, should they have an app, or should they be accessible through the navigator?
I think that depends on the focus and also of the capacity internally when it comes to IT, because just to have an app without taking care of it, it's not worth it. But for us, I think it's really useful. The most profitable customers are coming from the app. And when it comes to CRM, communicating or reaching customers is way more effective via push notification rather than via the 5th email you receive on Black Friday.
Interesting. So I think that there's quite a lot of learnings, I think, for FMCGs that are listening, because they don't, that whole direct-to-consumer space, they don't really understand that well, or they don't do that much. So I think there's some good takeaways there. This one question that we ask everyone, Laura, it wouldn't be an FMCG Guys episode without it, which is, if you went back to the beginning of your career, by the way, that you said, I have 9 years experience, as if it were a lot. And I think that you're still I know that you're ahead, but you're still pretty early on in your career in terms of years experience. So good on you. But it went back 9 years. What would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself with what you've learned now?
I think it's like, identify your passion and take your time with it, because at the end, internal drive has way more impact than a skill. So if you ask yourself, what does thriving mean to you? If you can answer that, you're on the right path.
Excellent. Love it. So Laura, also at the end of every episode, I try to do a bit of a sum up of what you've said today very quickly. So I thought it was very interesting, the fact that you came from B2B, and you've mentioned how transferable performance marketing is for B2B, which I thought it was very interesting. About S.Oliver, very interesting that it's owner-led, and it has, I think you mentioned, 3 It has the big S.Oliver brand and it has 2 other brands, right, associated to it. Performance marketing, we talked about pay for result, way more insights of a target group, user journey, time to conversion. So in other words, much more monetized, much more measured. So it is very different from brand building. I mean, the fact that it sits in e-commerce is already a big thing. We talked about the main part is still search, so Google and Bing, which we'll see how that changes with AI. And of course, there's also Meta and all the other social platforms there. It's becoming a crowded space, so you have to be more targeted. Talked a bit about retail media and that it's a channel with potential. I think that things will be happening there in the world of apparel. The importance of creative as well. You cannot build a brand on performance marketing. Because the brand, you need the brand marketing to create reach. And on the other hand, if you're only doing brand marketing, it will be difficult ultimately to convert your potential clients or customers. We talked about the importance of aligning, in your case, with e-commerce and with brand marketing, because at the end of the day, I think it's super important what you said, like to communicate effectively, be on the same boat in terms of goals, because that way you can really create something much more coherent and consistent, I think. I really like the fact that you're also managing the user experience on the website. And yeah, it's all about making a good user experience that ultimately reflects well on the brand and converts customers, I think. And you talked, Dave, a couple of pieces of advice, like having video, having user reviews somewhere, that really moves the needle. Red flag, shops that are not mobile first is important as well. You need to know what's good and what isn't. So Laura, I learned a lot, I have to say. So really enjoyed this.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
Well, thanks again. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. And we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys every Wednesday and every Saturday. Have a great day.